This is your boy Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, hashtag ending the stigma together. This is my journey. This is really a place I come to talk with, understand ideas of people, see the world through their lens as we work together to end the stigma, end their stigma around homelessness, and the stigma around serious and persistent mental illness, and the stigma around HIV and AIDS, ending many stigmas. I started this show because I was on a journey to end the stigma around mental health, and as I say, serious and persistent mental illness. But every time I turn around, there's more stigma that we're working through. So I've made this joke. I think we'll stop doing the show as soon as we end the stigma around mental health. So I think we're going to be here for a little while. So every week on this program, I bring you another leader, and we see the world through their lens. They don't have to be clinical, although often they are. They could just be people who are living a life. I'm 47 years old, I have 4 kids, I have ADHD, sober 15 years, and I'm working through and I'm battling through some things. I think the more I can tell you that, the more we can tell each other that, oh yeah, I'm in therapy twice a week, and the more we can do that thing, that's how we end stigmas. Kathy Rivera is here, CEO, Executive Director of North Shore Child and Family Guidance Center.
Perfect.
Right? Got it?
You nailed it. All right, I can go now.
I've been practicing. My friend, we met a bunch of years ago, right? You came on Philanthropy in Focus, which is, I say, the original Tommy D show, 226 episodes as of this morning. Shout out to a guy named FeeFam, thank you.
Bravo.
FeeFam from Building Beats, which is an organization that empowers young people through DJing. Like DJing. Like
I love it.
Mixing beats and stuff like that, right? So they're out of New York City, but I had Fee on the show today. That's episode 226. That's just it's like there every week, every Friday morning. You've been on that program.
Yes.
I want to get your background, and we're going to talk about the challenge of people making a decision where it's, how do we say this, a permanent solution to a temporary problem, right? Suicide is a challenge in this country. It's the numbers I understand are higher than they have been, especially among our youth. We'll get into all that, but I want to understand your background. Sure. Why does somebody go the LCSW route? Why does somebody, you know, people go MSW, Master of Social Work? Why? Like, what was, I always think, I know there's a journey, there's a story. So tell me about your story.
So first of all, thank you for letting me be on this show. It's a real privilege. And I want to, before I talk about myself, I want to say, because ending the stigma together, thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you.
And being vulnerable. I think, you know, one of the ways we do that is when we are comfortable with sharing a part of us and what we go through, it gives permission for others to be just as vulnerable. Or that's the hope, right?
Well,
and that's how we're going to end this.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, because I believe that. And I'm not a martyr.
You're human.
Yeah, and I think I'm just, you know, I'm trying to tell stories, that I think will resonate with people, because, let's be honest, I'm a big fan of mine. I like what I'm doing in the world. I do really cool stuff.
You have a lot of fans.
Well, thank you, but I like what I'm doing. I love this whole thing. And if I was looking at somebody and go, wow, that guy's really cool, he does cool things, he's like helping the world. Oh, wow. And he's in therapy, or she's in therapy, and she's sober, or she's, you know, battled addiction, and you go, oh man, it's all good. It's all good for us to feel the same way. So thank you for acknowledging that and reflecting that back on me, because I think that's working. I think it's making other people be able to open up and tell stories.
Absolutely, and you're building hope, which we'll get into as we sort of connect those dots with, you know, suicide and suicidal thinking and people who die by suicide. Hope is a huge savior in that, if you will, right?
So lack of hope is not good, is what you're saying, right?
I mean, suicide is preventable. Yeah. But let me go back to the original question that you asked. So I did not stumble into social work. I needed it to save me. I had my own personal story. Just to sort of quickly run through that, my own experience with domestic violence, addiction, gambling to be very specific, food insecurity, housing insecurity, and just a lot of growing up, a lot of verbal and physical abuse. So not such a pretty story. So a lot of hurting and healing that needed to happen. And so I realized I needed it after many mistakes in life made. You know, we powwowed right before this show about what kind of teenagers we were. And, you know, those are different kinds of stories. Some of them are very colorful. And so I, you know, led a life like that for a very long time. And I think once I started to get to a stage of transitioning to adulthood and realizing something's just not right and I need help, I started to gravitate toward, when I was in college, I started to gravitate toward that. I first started as a psychology major, then a sociology major, then decided to go go into graduate school in social work, because I had worked with adults who had HIV, adults with mental health and addiction. So I saw it all very quickly, very young, helping these individuals, and realized along that way, I need some help here too.
So that you are seeing your own experience in the lived experience of the people you were working with. So it was like, there was, because it's interesting, because when I found out I had this beautiful brain, as my coach calls it, ADHD, I had this interesting thing going, oh, I always thought I was neurotypical, right? My whole life, really, up until 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years ago. But I used to give myself a hard time. I used to think I was lazy. I don't finish things, right? All the ADHD stuff, right?
Right.
So it's interesting, like, how at least I'll say what I'm hearing you say is like, you go, oh my God, I'm not separate from the people I'm serving.
Absolutely not.
It's the same thing, man.
Different name, maybe a different gender, different age, but a lot of parallels, a lot of pain, and a lot of space for healing that's needed.
Trauma is universal, right? We all have some level of it. I think that I talk a lot about things being on a spectrum, and I think there's like, I listen to a guy named Dr. Gabor Mate, who talks a lot about trauma and ADHD and things, and trauma and other things. But I think, in my opinion, and with no clinical background, just 47 years of being human, right? I think trauma is this universal thing that it's there, and we're all battling through
Absolutely.
something. Yeah.
And I think even if you're not battling and you've managed to navigate life up until now without battling anything, something can happen at any given time. Life is not a straight line, and we could find ourselves in a place where we are unraveling, and life is pretty much knocking us down, and we have no idea nor the strength to get up. It can happen to any one of us.
Yeah, so was that a blessing for you to see in the people you were working with and serving that you had been affected?
I think so. I think I remember thinking, gosh, these folks are brave. They're asking for help. You know, I mean, I was working with people that were end-stage HIV, right, and AIDS, and ready to die, and really worried about the people they were leaving behind, and still focused on living. And I thought, wow, that is some super brave, resilient stuff. They've got all this hope. I kind of they were almost my heroes in some ways. Wow. And I saw that, and I realized I need to create that space for myself. I'm helping them on their journey. I kind of need some help for my own journey. And so it was just really, really powerful. I went back to school.
Where were you doing that? Like, in what capacity?
The South Bronx, so I was a case manager.
For a nonprofit? For
a nonprofit. I've been a nonprofit my whole life.
Your whole career?
My whole career.
From the beginning?
Best place to be.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's where we're needed the most.
Well, I think it's the front lines where the service work is being done, you know, not to get, I don't get political anywhere really, and certainly not here, but I think, like, what I do stand on is that there's no way without the nonprofit sector doing this work it gets done. It doesn't. There's no other way.
Absolutely, and you know this, Tommy. Our organization, especially children, right? You know, we talked about it earlier. You know, bigger kids, bigger problems. If you don't intervene, you know, as early as possible when signs and symptoms are happening, you're going to have different outcomes later. And so I love the fact that we focus on children and families. We get there early so that they can have lives that you know, where they can thrive in the community. Our organization turns no one away for inability to pay, because it's a human right to have access to mental health, and there should be no shame or stigma associated with that.
There should be none. And this just all happened one day. What happened was, my friend Jamie Rosen saw me speak at Viscardi with a panel of nonprofit leaders in the mental health space, and she's a mental health attorney, and Jamie Rosen, and she said, that was great. Would you do that at the Nassau County Bar Association? And I was like, sure. Didn't know what to do next, but then I was like, you know what? Got a panel of folks. It was Neela from EAC Network. Right? Dr. Larry Grubler from TSINY, Transitional Services for New York, Yolanda Rabano-Gross from Options for Community Living. And I said, how do I elevate this? So I said, I'm going to make up t-shirts. So all my panelists got t-shirts. And by the way, you get that coffee mug's brand new out of the box. That's yours.
I love swag.
Yeah,
love it.
I'm all about
I'll
it.
never
I'm all
say
about
no
it.
to it.
I know. Actually, I went in the closet over here where I keep the mugs, and I go, I need more mugs. So I got to call my guy. Shout out to my guy Fred Taffer, who hooks me up with all my swag. So we did that at the Bar Association, and then I said, that's pretty cool. Now what? What's next? And I said, I've solved no problems, really, not to be self-deprecating. I've done some things, people maybe are changed, but I was like, there's more.
Right.
And that's where this idea comes from, because it's about education for me. It's about saying, you know, so when you talk about children and you talk about the work you're doing, especially our young people, all the stuff that I'm working through has really been unaddressed. I mean, I mentioned that I'm sober 15 years later this month, and I realize now why I drank. You know, I realized all that stuff, and I think I never saw a therapist till when I was a child. We embrace this in my home now, seeing therapists, and being able to go through talk therapy and using your tools and all that stuff. So that really truly resonates with me, that your organization is specifically focused on our young people.
Yeah. I mean, you have one chance to get it right, and you know, to sort of bring it back to, you know, suicide. It remains the second leading cause of death in young people ages 10 to 24. Do you know what the first reason is why kids die? Because kids aren't supposed to die.
No. Before suicide?
Because it's the second leading cause. What the primary
I don't
cause
know, an accident?
Accidents or medical conditions. That's it,
yeah.
right? Things, an unforeseen accident.
Right, so the unforeseen accident could be not preventable, right? Or right,
a car
okay,
accident.
or right, that just happened, right?
Medical reasons.
Right.
So,
So an illness, and then something that is preventable is the next one down.
right.
Suicide.
But it's suicide. Like, think about that.
yeah.
That's like, it's wild that I'm telling you that. Right?
I don't know that I knew that to be the thing. And
that stat hasn't changed for years.
has it? But it has gotten worse though in our young people.
Yes. So it hasn't changed, but they are talking about moving the needle back to maybe even as young as 9. A 9-year-old, you know, think about 9-year-olds and think about the size of a 9-year-old, where they are taking their own lives. Dying by suicide. It gives me goosebumps to say this. And so we're not going in the right direction.
You know,
we're not going in the right direction. Something's happening.
I want to ask you, or I want to make a statement here, and I say this. When I find out somebody took their own life, I don't. What I say is, how much pain were they in? That's my question. How much pain was this person in that there was no alternative? I've never, ever looked down on somebody who's done that. I've never thought ill of that person. I go, wow, man, how painful. And I know from pain. And I just go, how much pain were they in? And that's the first thing, that was the way, that was what they had, that was their alternative to living.
Right.
That just makes me sad.
It's powerful, right? When you think of the question, how much pain, you can't measure it, right? It's all relative. I think when we think about suicide and, you know, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, not only is the question, how much pain were they in, that there was no hope, you know, where, you know, like the other layers are, why did they feel like they couldn't ask for help? Who was around to offer that help? What tools did the people need who could have provided the help? You know, where was that? Why did the people that wanted to help not know where to go for that help, right? I think there's so many layers of questions that we could ask, because, you know, when you think about a child, there's a lot of eyes on a child usually, right? You're talking about within school, you're talking about within the home, you're talking about within a peer, there's social media.
So are you saying it would be, you would think that things would be caught, there'd be some
Absolutely.
Maybe where an adult is just amongst themselves, they do their work, they disappear,
it's harder,
whatever.
and it's less forgiving, right? When you see a child in pain, there's a different kind of response. I also think, but I do know that very often, and we hear the stories, even in our own work, when someone, family members or anyone finds out that someone is thinking about ending their own life or actively planning, very often we hear, I had no idea.
Yeah, all the time.
So I want you to think about this. Not only is it how much pain were they in, how much stigma was out there that they could not feel safe enough to tell anyone, you know, I'm in some pain right here. There's these thoughts that are in my head. I'm feeling like there's no way out. I'm feeling that the only way that could be out is if I don't exist anymore. The fact that that is hidden, can you imagine the pressure and what that child is going through, that they feel they have to wear this mask and not even share with others? Like, to me, to even say that and to think that is you know, unfathomable.
Well, I think, and yes, we're focused on children in this conversation, but I think it's adults that turn on the charm and the face and the smile and the mask when they're in so much pain, when they're hurting inside. That's kind of what I'm trying to do here, is just make it where people can just say, dude, I'm hurting. You know, I'm in pain. I need some help. You know, there's this, excuse me, as an organization which you may be familiar with, Mental Health Association in Nassau County. My friend Jeff McQueen,
best guy ever,
sat in that chair right there for an earlier episode of this program, and Prashant Gupta, who's a buddy of ours who runs a lot of like community relations and stuff. They're painting a wall in Hempstead, and it's down this alleyway next to their building, and if you made a donation, you got to have you know, a post. You have to one of your words posted on the wall. So on that wall, it will say #ending the stigma together.
I love it.
And thank you. And you know, because I'm Tommy D and the whole thing, and I'm there, and photos and videos and stuff. They asked me to come up to the mic and say a few words, and I did, and I said specifically want to speak to the men in this alleyway here, you know, because I think for men there's even more of a stigma about talking about this stuff. And you know, I said, Jeff McQueen, if I said, how you doing, what would you say? He goes, fine. Yeah, everybody's fine. That's always the answer, right? Like, how you doing? I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And most people are not fine.
Right.
So I'm up there at the microphone, and I read this quote that I attribute to Robin Williams, because that's where I found that I never really figured out if it's his or not, but it's, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always.
Yes.
I'm not great at that. I do the best I can, but if we can meet people there and just realize, I don't know what your day is like. I don't know what your life is like, but if I can find love and compassion, and I'm not saying this because I'm great at it. I'm saying it because if I can inspire somebody else watching this to do that thing, then we're better off. But
absolutely,
it's those type of dialogues, like standing in that alleyway, having that, and then I got so much like feedback, and it was super vulnerable. Because I'm supposed to be like this guy, right? Who's not supposed to, but I'm not. That's not real.
Right.
That's not real. This is real. This dialogue is real.
I love it. And I really appreciate you making the distinction between the genders, because you're right. I think with a lot of our work, you know, especially that we do through our Douglas S. Feldman Suicide Prevention program, which I'm very happy and grateful for, because the fact that we have that program and families can see it, they know, oh my goodness, you have the expertise to help my child in this area. My child,
specific to
very specific. You know, we've had families come in and say, you know, my child said they wanted to kill themselves. I'm not sure if it's real, but I know you have this program. Can you please just help me? And we're like, we've got this. But just going back to the gender pieces of it, even in our own work, we often find, especially in the Latino community, for young girls, parents, from a cultural perspective, will respond very differently with their girls in saying, you know, there's something wrong. I notice they're isolating themselves. They're doing this. And so we will treat them for that. For the boys, they often self-medicate. There's that pain there, and they're thinking, right? They may be still also thinking about suicide, but they're masking it through the substance use, and we'll find that the parents will say, oh, I'm bringing my child in just for substance use issues. That's it. There's no mental health, no mental health.
There's no underlying
There's
trauma.
no mental health, right.
They're not trying to self-medicate to feel better.
No, they're not sad. They just, you know, they're just smoking marijuana. They're doing this, they're doing that. And it's fascinating, right? Because you're right, you know, and I think there's no space, or there's limited space for young men, especially in very, you know, specific demographics, to be able to say, you know, be safe enough to say, I'm not feeling okay. Feeling down, actually. Not feeling like I want to talk to someone, you know, and being met with an openness. So that's something that we...
Whereas you think, though, that the young girls would be met with more of an open
Absolutely,
dialogue.
there's more sensitivity to it, right? And there's an expectation for young women to speak more and be more open and sort of, be more emotional and wear their heart on their sleeves. There's just a little bit more permission for that. So when we talk about ending the stigma, I appreciate that you have such a wide range of areas, because then it's also within certain cultural communities, within certain genders, within certain topics, or certain areas. It really is extremely broad.
Yeah, and thank you for noticing that, because I didn't come into this with an idea. I did come into it with an idea. I had no idea what was going to happen from it, and I still don't. I was on the phone. I've had several folks from Zucker Hillside Hospital here in the studio.
I love it.
Yeah, and I was on a meeting with them just earlier this week, because there's a gentleman over there who is very focused on the vocational program for people who are living with a serious and persistent mental illness, and how important as human beings we relate to our job or career or passion or whatever it is. And that goes, I think, to that hope piece, which I want to go to that hope piece again. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so, building hope is very individualized, right? I think in the context of suicide, believing that you can get through this pain or even live with this pain, right? Because the reality is life is painful, right? In general, right? Life is tough.
Yeah.
Whether you have a mental health need or not, life is tough. It's going to knock you down. It's not always going to go your way. But you and I, and many of us, still have hope that today was a crappy day, tomorrow's going to be a better day, right? So it's how big or small hope is. The fact is it has to exist. And I think when you started the question earlier of how much pain must that person have been in to not only think about it, plan it, but also go through with dying by suicide. There was no space for hope, and honestly,
so if we inject hope, we can solve a lot of these.
We have a chance. We have a huge chance, and I tell you, it's day by day. Hope that today is going to be better tomorrow. We can even start there.
And that might be enough to get through. And I find, and again, I'm not a veteran, but I make no assumptions to know, only from what I've been told from veterans and people who do this work. But some, the introduction of a pet, a dog, and as I started to talk about just now, a vocation, some reason, some purpose, somebody else that's, I don't know if you ever saw this program with Ricky Gervais, I think it's called Afterlife, and his wife passes away. She was dying of cancer, and she had left him all these videos of their story and their life together, and it's not your funny Ricky Gervais, it's a pretty serious and somber thing. And the program starts out where he's done, he's ready to take his life. And this friggin' dog that he has to take care of and get his butt up and feed the dog and do everything is like for much of the first season of the show is like dragging him through life. And it's almost like, I feel like he sees like his wife wanted the dog to make sure it was like the dog was there to force him to keep on going, So I feel that's hope, though, too, right?
Absolutely. I think even just being able to open up small spaces for any kind of joy to come in, right, is building hope. Yeah. I think that, very often, with hopelessness, or people make the mistake. Let me actually take this a step back. People make the mistake of thinking, because depression and anxiety often also go hand in hand, right? Obviously, it gets critical when there's suicidal thinking, but very often anxiety and depression are associated, right? They're lingering somewhere in there in trauma. You've been bringing up that up, and I think that you're spot on. But the opposite of being depressed is not happiness. I think the mistake is people think, oh, well, you must be happy.
So it's got to be like all the way over here, or all the way over there.
No, the opposite of being depressed is just feeling less depressed, right? Just feeling, right? Just keeping little windows of hope, little spaces of saying, I feel joy.
Do you know how much easier you're making that for people in a good way? I mean, by making it like that, like, okay, I could just feel a little better. Like, I don't have to be like bouncing off.
No.
So like, if I'm way depressed in a very low spot, but I find hope, that might only be a slight degree up.
That's it.
But that's what we need.
Absolutely.
Versus if you tell me I got to be flying off the rafters, so joyous.
Right.
Well, that seems like a lot to get to.
Well, it's a lot of pressure too.
Yeah, I got to get all the way there.
And now you're making me more anxious and depressed.
Yeah, right.
When I don't achieve it, right?
Right. You're kind of setting up people up for failure.
Yeah, it's very incremental. And look, I'm a parent, and I understand like when many parents come in, they're desperate for their child to get better, and I understand and feel better. Right? Every parent does not. We fall apart when we see our children in pain. It's so hard to see. We want to rescue them. We're supposed to keep them safe, and it's a very difficult journey, not only for the child but also for the parent, or for the for the people, for anybody who's going through it. But just being able to make those incremental changes and slow down, you'll get there faster, right? Just these little tiny incremental movements in life, is really very powerful, and it really, not to sound dramatic, it could really make the difference between life and death.
Absolutely it can.
It really can.
Without a doubt. Sure it can. And I like that we're setting smaller goals for people, because, again, I'm going back to that, but it's so drastic to say I got to get all the way there. No. We just got to find something that you're so committed to. I've told this story in the show, and I'll tell it again. I used to go to Baruch. And at the time, like I said, I didn't know I had ADHD. I just thought I was like kind of banging it in. And
shout out to CUNY. I'm a CUNY gal too.
I love CUNY. Got to shout out CUNY and SUNY, the gems of this state.
And no debts.
And 100%.
Debt free.
Dude, when I went to Nassau, it was like $1,300 to go to Nassau, and it was like I don't know, $1,800 to go to Baruch later on. Like, it's the steal of the world. It's and you get a wonderful education.
Absolutely.
Fortunately, unfortunately, I didn't finish there because I was, I was tending bar, I was drinking, I was 21 years old. I finished at SUNY Old Westbury, another deal, right? I'm on the F train one time going into the city, and I was feeling pretty low, and this little girl like made eye contact with me, and she maybe, I told the story so many times, but maybe 6, 7 years old, and the way she smiled at me connected with me and changed just quickly, just to tell you that
shifted you, moved you.
And a little change like that, and I'm going to go any deeper into anything, but it just shifted where I was mentally and where I was going, and that is the impact we can have on each other.
Absolutely.
That's the impact we can make for people. It's like simple as that. How are you? What do you need? What's going on? Let's grab a coffee, whatever. And that's what I think we need to do for each other. I want to ask you this, because there's a question I ask everybody when they come on the show. Through your eyes, through your lens, how do we end this stigma?
I call it the AAA.
Okay.
Awareness, acceptance, and action.
Tell me about that.
So first, I think the first step when you talk about this, being able to spread education and awareness about it. It is a problem. It is an epidemic.
Yeah.
It's killing people. Stigma, that is, I should say. And it's been around for a long time. We just spotlight it, but yet numbers aren't changing. So it's a problem.
Yeah.
Data is telling us a story, and there's a problem. So I think raising awareness in any platform. I think philanthropy and focus to now you're moving in the right direction. So you're spreading awareness. Then there's the acceptance piece of it, right? Which is, okay, I've learned something. I've gotten educated on something. I need to believe it to be true. And so, I think, first of all, if people think they've never been exposed to mental illness, or they don't know a soul in this world that's ever struggled, they're wrong. Yeah. So that's number one. But really being able to accept that, okay, even if you still have your sort of reservations about it, accept that it's happening in the world, right? You have celebrities who are dying by suicide. Okay, so it's in the world, right? Maybe not your world, but it's in the world. And take action. Yeah. And that action, we're talking about baby steps here. I'm not saying that you got to open up your own podcast, but I'm saying, you know what, if you see someone down, how about a simple question? Everything okay? Yeah. Anything I could do for you? So any little thing. Keep your spidey senses up. That's
that
all.
Little girl on the F train 25, 28 years ago changed my life, literally, in a moment. And that's what we can do for each other. And you're changing lives, and I appreciate you. We're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. This is good. Can we come back?
I will absolutely come back.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Don't you dare threaten me with a good time, man. This is my show.
Cheers. Your
boy, the nonprofit sector connector, on a journey, learning. I mean, I don't have the answers. I'm going to promise you, I'm going to continue to tell you that. But if you have people in your life who do have the answers, hook them up here. Let's get them on the show. Let's get them down in the studio. Let's have this conversation, because I believe together we can work on ending the stigma. That is ending the stigma together. Your boy, the nonprofit sector connector. This is another In Focus production. I'm going to give you a heart. Heart, heart. See you again. Later. Bye.